I'm not going to give you an opinion as to whether it was responsive or responsible this time, MGM's bid. That's still something that needs to be discussed, but I wanted to point you to the correct statute that talks about that. And that goes back to the protest statute that I read off. Let me give some guidance as to what's responsible and some of the findings the commission needs to make. And so what I'd like to see happen, or at least advise the commission that they should do, is for the next agenda, one, have a discussion, possible approval, and action as to accepting the protest and reopening, not redistributing and accepting new bids. We have those two bids; they're still good bids, but having the advisory committee look at those bids again with the new guidance in these two statutes I'm pointing out, and make a recommendation to this board, and then the board gets to make its decision again. Now having the information laid out in the letter of the protest, which I think is very helpful in directing this board. And so you have approval and acceptance of that letter as a true protest, and then you also have the disposition. What are we going to do about it? We get a motion either to proceed with one or the other, or to ban the process and get the bids all together, or whatever this board deems prudent. I will say is for guidance for this board and for the advisory committee that they should look at that statute, the protest statute, and the factors of what's responsible in determining that. I will say that it was a minor defect, and this board does have discretion to pass a minor defect, and that the primary factor is a lowest responsive bidder. I will say that.
The last part, I'm sorry.
The primary factor, and it's really substance over form. Okay, remember that, the substance over the form, but the primary factor that this board should consider is the lowest, the overall price. Okay, but look at the totality of circumstances. True.
I have a question. I have some concerns in regard to the email itself, the incorrect email. Was there any other email contact that shows that they received something else? Because in the letter that was received from MGM, their email is .com instead of .net. That's why they didn't receive it. So what I'd like to know is if there has been was there any other correspondence?
Yeah, we've corresponded with MGM before on other items.
Was it .net or was it .com? Because therein lies the issue why they didn't get it.
MGM's email that went out with regards to addendum number 1 per my record shows that they are .net.
Okay, and in their letter it shows it's .com instead of .net.
Okay, I'll have to glance
and
at that
that's
again and see.
what I think would be important to know.
I thought your comment was the reverse of that, Mrs. Chairman. Let me see what we have here.
If you look at that letter where it was the wrong address, why they may have failed to have received it, it's .com instead of net. And in the email that was sent says .net. So I think if we can clear that up, that might explain.
I'm going to clear up the record here real quick to that letter man. Is that all right?
Sure.
It says, simply, this is the second paragraph from MGM. It says, simply put, either Basin Engineering failed to include MGM on the July 22nd, 2013 email, or they used the wrong address. An example, com instead of net. Okay, if you look at the top of the letterhead, it shows the address.
Oh, there it is. I'm
It
sorry.
isn't net.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're just making an example that we could have used com instead of net.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what I took it as
So
too.
maybe
Is
so. I
we use com
apologize.
instead of that, yeah.
But either way, I just
Yes,
had
right.
And we looked at that. You know, when we read the letter, I went back and I looked at
Thank
things.
you.
And, you know, like I said, we've sent other stuff to them before and received comments back and forth.
Okay.
And I've even, you know, we're still in touch with them on other projects today.
Yeah.
So,
I just wanted to be sure that wasn't
yeah, that's what I
the
did.
issue.
Mm-hmm.
I went and looked at, you know, my outgoing email list to make sure that.
MGM sort of
That
thought it was
clear?
an issue.
Did did you receive a notice that your email did not go through? Because I see that their address is .net. You sent it to .net on Monday, July 22nd at 3:58. So you sent it to their correct address on their letterhead. And did you ever receive, like when you get through your email, this did not go
No,
through?
yeah, that's one of the
So-
first things we looked at when they called and said, hey, we never got it. I went back to the list of everybody that went out on that project, and that's why I printed everybody's out.
Yeah.
And also, for personally, I had printed out other email correspondence back and forth that we had sent them that showed that, you know, they had received the other emails. A good example is the LDS Church in McGill. We had them as one of the contractors. There were actually 2 addendums that went out on that, and they had received those, and when they showed up at the pre-bid and they talked about, they had a conversation about that, and it was in the notes of the pre-bid conference. So, you know, unfortunately, I'm not sure what happened on their end. I can't say that it did or didn't happen. I mean, it's an unfortunate deal. They are the low, you know, by price bidder on the project. It's just one of those cases you just don't know what to do. We also have a bidder who shows addendum number 1. So on our side, I know my records show this, and they don't, and it's just a sad situation.
To clarify, I wanted this discussion, Mr. Costa, briefly. If you look at also NRS, take this note down, 332.085, it talks about the factors this body needs to consider in determining the responsibility of the bidder. And so essentially, this board next commission meeting is going to have to weigh financial responsibility, experience, adequacy, past performance, including, and then the other factors I talked about, the low price of the actual bid, and weigh that against the missing of that addendum. You see what I'm saying? And either I or Mr. Brown will be here to help advise on the next kind of commissioning, but it's essentially this board responding to make that decision.
Mr. Costa.
I want to go back to Mr. Howe's question, which was, did you receive any bounce notices or anything relative? We know a lot of emails.
Yeah, no, so that's like I said,
You didn't get any
I went back as
indication
soon as,
of tax
you know, I talked to him on the phone the day of the meeting where it was awarded at that time, and I contacted everybody and let them know. Again, like I said, I had one.
That was your question, right, Richard? Yeah. Okay. And my second question is, could you describe in your words what the nature of addendum 1 was again?
The nature of addendum 1, without reading it fully here, is to be specific on the item that when the bid packets are open and awarded, it was during the meeting begins at 9 o'clock. We made sure that the specific wording in there is when during that meeting time frame dealt with the whenever the agenda came out. So in other words, it wasn't going to happen at 9 o'clock. It was whenever it was agended, and it was further down the road. I mean, the bid packet comes out weeks before.
I know the question that's going to come to us is materiality, and I'm just trying to figure out, you were right in the thick of it, why you what caused you to determine
We just
that
wanted to make sure that they knew
necessitated
that it did not open at 9 o'clock. It opened during the time that the agenda was going to label at a later date.
which ultimately was 9:15, right?
Something in that fashion, whatever the agenda item was at that time.
I have
Thank you.
one more thing to ask the district attorney. We're gonna need, when we come back on the 9th, which of these 2 items is gonna be? Because Shell Creek, if we don't award it to Shell Creek, they are gonna have a legal stand that they did everything right the first time. And they're gonna come back, if we say MGM deals it because they got the low bid, Shell Creek's gonna come back probably with a more of a legal stand saying we did everything right the first time. Now you can't, it opens a whole can of worms. And so that we can have some answers to this question, which of the 2 is most prudent? Is it better to act on the moral part for the lower bid, or is it better to act on the legal part, which is Shell Creek abided by everything. They did everything, and MGM on their part missed one piece. Okay, is that okay? But I personally would rather err on the legal side than I would on the moral side. And I'm looking at this .net thing that's really bothering me because that's their letterhead and that's where you sent the email. So when we come back on the 9th, we're going to be asked as a commission to base our decision on, is it better to save a few $1,000s or is it better to be legal, where you could get into a legal battle that could wind up costing you a hell of a lot more than $4,000. Let me finish. I think that we, acting prudently, are showing everyone that if you bid in White Pine County, you're gonna get a fair shake. I agree with the man's protest, we're looking at it, and I think that's right. But we're gonna have 2 weeks, and I'd rather have this addressed and have some type of leadership, some type of, I'm not getting the word out, but it's some type of legal, some type of direction. Direction is the way I want it. And a direction in a legal sense as opposed to a moral sense. And I understand this is a minor deal, okay? I'm just speaking my side, which I'm
Well,
not
you
trying.
have the right to do that.
And so we're going to have 2 weeks out here. We need to really look at this because I think we're going to wind up opening a whole can of worms if we go. It can be either way, but I think personally, I would rather err on the side as we look at the legal aspect of this as opposed to you forgot the dot and I across the T. I've talked to other contractors, 4 to be specific, and they've all had an episode where they forgot to cross a I and they lost contracts for that same reason. So, that being said, I would like the DA and everybody to really research and give us some guidance on what would be the right direction for us to take. I mean, I want to be right on this, and I want to get the project done too.
Well, let me complicate matters just a little bit further, but it's a discussion and you need to consider it, okay? If a vote is taken contrary to the statutes of Nevada, that decision is null and void, right? It's possible that that decision that we made last week was taken for other reasons, given who was proposed and advanced that cause to this board, may be null and void anyway. So we may not be in hot water at all if we just reconsidered those 2 bids from the beginning. So I just want to throw that out there. So
Could I request one thing from you, and I know you're busy? Could you give Patrice a written, what you explained to us a few moments ago, the things that we need to consider?
Yes.
It's one thing to have it in minutes, but it's better to have it in front of you when you get to the agenda.
I will provide a written memo from the Office of District Attorney
That's fine.
on the position of
Yeah,
this.
that's fine.
Signed by Mr. Kelly Brown.
I have some clarification.
Sure.
Commissioner Helm, you were talking about the moral. Are you referring to the difference, the low price, so far as spending the taxpayers' dollars?
That and the fact that it's,
I mean, to the lowest responsible bid.
that is one part of my opinion. The other part is, should we consider this protest based on what he's put here, that we didn't get the email to him or whatever, I just want to be, and the moral part is, should we act, because the guy didn't dot an I or cross a T, a minor thing, is that more specific than actually doing the entire project correctly? Which of the two? So that I think defines my opinion of a moral thing. Because he didn't dot an I, which is minor, I know it's minor, but there's the legal part of it. And so those are the moral issue that you asked me about is that.
I think the mystery here is why they didn't get the email.
Yeah, and
And
that's
that might go to
That's it.
responsive factor, which may ultimately carry the day. You know, the district attorney operates without private prejudice, and I see only legal issues here.
Yeah.
So I will
Exactly.
wrap it up as best I can so you guys can debate that and consider it.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman,
Yes,
I have a question for you.
sure.
Then I understand that at the next consideration of this, presumably on October 9th, we will likely be considering revoking our previous contract award and then doing a commission level evaluation of those bids rather than reappointing
Yes.
another team to go look and come back 2 weeks later.
Correct.
Is that
That could work.
logical and
It is.
consistent with your advice?
It is. You would have to consider both bids on their face without having one proposed to you or the other. We're going to disregard the advancement made by Basin and Mr. Calderwood. You have to look at both on their face. Otherwise, if you want a recommendation from your professionals, you're going to have to let them do that. And submit it to you.
Is it your advice today, and it's certainly my sense, that after reading the statute, that we cannot rely on the recommendation that was made, albeit in good faith, by the previous evaluation team because one member was disqualified
That's correct.
by the state? So we can kind of back up just
That
before
point.
that point
Yeah.
and go forward from there.
That's correct. You can operate without a recommendation.
Along that vein, if in doing so, we grant that protest, do we have any financial liability to the protester if we grant the protest back up to that point and reevaluate whatever the results are? Just in granting that protest? I don't think so. I don't know.
I'm not in a position to make that connection.
Thanks.
Okay, then we'll put that on the agenda in two different items that Mr. Coster stated and he's doing this.
And I'll work with to make sure it's available.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, just to clarify something, Commissioner Carson, I'm going back to item 1, discussion action possible approval to donate the White Pine County ambulance to the City of Ely Volunteer Fire Department. There were 2 motions made and each one died for lack of second. So we, in that full anticipation of your arrival, we're going back to that. Do you remember? All right. At this time, the sheriff was here and he wanted up above in the road commission meeting, which this should not have been there, it should have been a county commission agenda item. Approval of list of county-owned equipment to be auctioned. The sheriff wants the oldest ambulance to refurbish it to, I think, like a control. For their use. And then the city of Ely, we were going to give the city of Ely Volunteer Fire Department another ambulance so they can use it as an ambulance. Well, we were having differences here, so we need your opinion. And Mr. Coster, do you want to talk to your opinion?
Second, thank you. I think what I think. I'm not opposed to the concept, but I asked if we get more information. Turns out we did have the VIN number. Mr. Howell was able to read that as a record. But we didn't have any valuation information or statements from the city on what to do with it. And I thought that given there were no time deadlines, we would ask for that information before we voted. So I thought we were tabling for that reason. But I,
If Mr. Watts were here, you could have asked him about the estimated value on that ambulance. He told me outside, I can lay that to the board if you like.
that,
Sure.
Practically worthless.
is that with a dollar sign in front?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
We're talking about the city of Ely one, not the one for the sheriff.
That's the one that's going to be given from the county to the city of Ely Fire Department, Volunteer Fire Department. It happens to be in the custody of sheriff.
That's sufficient for me.
Okay, good. Mrs. Carson?
So, one for sure is going to the sheriff's.
And that's not before the board right now. We're just discussing the one that's going from the county. That happens to be parked over there right now.
Okay, I haven't, why, if it's in that bad a shape, why would the city of Ely want it?
Because it's better than nothing. We're not using anything for it.
And they're going to, I guess, refurbish it or whatever. Mr. Fire Chief Rivera, why do you want that?
I mean,
Because it's
it's
better than
supposed-
one reason now. It's an update from what we're using for a backup ambulance right now.
Okay, and the ambulance that the sheriff was requesting,
It's not on.
this is not on the commission today. Okay. But, if the 2 of them are like in value, then we're sure that is the sheriff getting his pick if we vote to do this?
He's already chosen.
I'm just kind
No,
of, okay.
you're just clarifying, it's fine.
Yeah.
Mr. Watts told me, Sheriff Watts told me that he doesn't mind this ambulance going because he's working on getting a better product for the town.
All
For
right.
his use.
And this is the one that had gone to him
Yes,
previously?
and he supports this.
Okay.
Okay. And Mr. Howell?
Just for Lori's information, my motion was to, I have the VIN number, so we can clarify exactly which ambulance is going to the city of Ely. And my motion was to approve this particular item. The other ones are all on the auction block, but this particular ambulance, which the sheriff is willing to give to the city of Ely, I had the VIN number, we all have it, and my motion was going to be to allow us to give this ambulance, this particular ambulance, VIN number and all, to the city. It died for lack of a second, and that's where we were at.
Okay. Would Mr. Howell be prone to reinitiate that motion?
Sure.
Second.
I would.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to give the ambulance to the city of Ely Volunteer Fire Department.
Just get the VIN number.
Yes.
The VIN number again.
And the VIN number again I can give it to you one more time. It's 1, F as in fox, D as in David, K as in kite, E as in echo. 3, 0, F as in fox, I as in Ivan, S as in Sam, H as in hotel, A as in alpha. 6, 8, 2, 4, 3.
Are those Catholics or are they
They're all Catholic. And the ambulance in question is a 1995 Real Coach ambulance.
I was going to second it if there was any doubt. I don't have to do motion.
I have to say, this is one of the funniest items. All right, I have a motion and a second. Question. Yes, Mr. Judge.
Does the Ely Volunteers hold the license, or does the city of Ely?
I don't know, we'll figure that out.
No,
later.
we need to know,
It's going
because
to the
one is a
City of
private
Ely
club,
Volunteer
the
Fire
other one is a
Department.
government entity. You need to clarify
Well,
that.
Tell us who it's going to.
The entity will have the title, and then whoever within their organization that is licensed to drive it will be using it. I'm assuming that's how that would work.
Let's not assume.
That's how it works at the county. Huh?
It's not our business. We just
It's not our
Yeah.
business.
We're giving it to the city of Ely, Volunteer Fire Department, the city of Ely can register it and do whatever they want.
And then when you go to the city council meeting, ask them. what
I'm
they're
going
gonna
to.
do. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Who seconded it? Mike's Cosner seconded.
I second it, third.
No, yeah, third is it. That's right. Discussion action possible. A couple months ago or a month or so ago, a man was out here in the lobby, and he asked me about part.
This has been a Georgetown production. George Chachis reporting. The preceding program was sponsored by The Greek, Ely's Radio Shack dealer at 570 Altman in downtown Ely, and brought to you as a public service by Ely TV, Channel 3-2 in Ely, Nevada. Local news telecasts can be seen Monday through Friday at 12:30 and 6:30 p.m. on this station.